You see how the white man did us, dog. They let them go and they gonna keep killing us. It ain't gonna never stop, man.
Okay, and let us pause and welcome our principal that's here. Give her a round of applause, our sister Ava. Thank our brother Louis Ali for being here.
That's right. That's right.
And there are others. But dear beloved brothers and sisters, this is an important conversation that's been going on for quite some time.
Take your time, brother.
And one thing that we notice, that soon as we began to have this conversation, up pops the conversation on the national level about reparations.
Yes,
that's right, brother. That's right.
And all of a sudden, the mouthpieces that represent that idea have changed.
That's right.
From those that have historically been the voices.
That's right.
For that conversation. Did you notice that?
Yes, sir.
See, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said he promises only to deceive.
That's right.
That's right.
He will never fulfill his promise.
That's right. Yes, sir.
And they have clearly demonstrated, family, for the past 464 years.
That's right.
That they are not going to change.
That's right.
That's why Mr. Trump, he stood before us and literally insulted us, saying that you have nothing to lose. Right? What is that saying to a person of faith that's a Christian? That means, at least I would interpret it as, Jesus can't help you.
That's right. That's right.
You don't got nothing to lose.
Hello. Hello.
And we will settle for that because, you know, they made us to believe and have us thinking that a better life for us is somewhere beyond the grave. What does that kind of insult say to us, Muslims?
Hello. Hello.
Red, black, and green, a man can stand before an entire community and say, you don't have anything to lose. Your schools are a shambles. Your communities are.
You know that word.
So we can take that sit down.
That's right. That's
Is that right?
Yes,
So brothers and sisters, at this time, I'd like to introduce and bring before you our guest for her opening remarks. But I would like to tell you a little bit that I've learned about this dear sister, that I have observed for the entire 26 years of my Islamic life in the Nation of Islam, and have learned a great deal from her lectures and from studying our study guides. The Honorable Louis Farrakhan teaches us that whenever a people yearn or pray to be freed or liberated from the tyranny of an oppressor, Allah God, the Most High, answers that yearning or prayer through the womb of a woman from among that people and produces a child of consequence.
That's right. That's right.
Born as an answer to the yearning and to the prayer of that people. The Creator puts in them gifts and talents that are to be used for the glory of God and for the service of their people. In Mississippi, Ida B. Wells was such a child. Fannie Lou Hamer was such a child. Medgar Evers was such a child. And yes, our brother Alfred Skip Robinson was such a child. You can give him a round of applause. Y'all know who I'm talking about. In fact, today's youth that are born are so different. Y'all see them sitting out there? They are so different that the enemy is literally frightened to death of them. Because they are the warrior class of our people, whether we recognize it or not. That's why they're quick to defend and quick to aggress. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
But if given the right knowledge and the right counsel, they are to become what the Bible calls our Joshua generation. They are here to fulfill
Hello.
They are not here to ask for anything.
That's right.
So our principal, our guest that's here, Sister Ava Muhammad, she's a wife, she's a mother, she's an author, she's an activist of the highest order, she's an attorney, she's a premier counselor on issues confronting black families.
That's right.
Including the dynamics of male-female relationships, self-esteem, career mobility, and spiritual cultivation. She's a gifted lecturer and researcher and has addressed audiences throughout America, also in London, Paris, and the Caribbean. She and her husband, entrepreneur Brother Darius Muhammad, are world travelers whose adventures have taken to such destinations as Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and the Fiji Islands. The Honorable Louis Farrakhan said of this sister that Ava Muhammad is partly responsible for these study guides.
That's right.
Lord, bless my heart. He said she's partly responsible. He continued, there are certain people who have a certain chemistry that allows you to create. Sister Ava has the kind of spiritual chemistry that causes her to love the word of Allah. She loves, and because she loves the nation of Islam and the work of the nation, she has the kind of spiritual chemistry that allows him to create. Please, brothers and sisters, help me receive to this podium and this microphone the national spokesperson of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, Sister Student Minister Ava Muhammad.
Thank you so much. In the most holy name of Allah, the beneficent, the merciful, we give praise and thanks to Allah for his blessings and mercy upon humanity, always providing us guidance when we go astray. He always raises up from a people who are astray, one from among them. He does not send strangers. We thank Allah over and over again for his intervention in the affairs of black people, original people, here in North America. In the coming of Master Farrakhan Muhammad, to whom all praises forever due. We thank him for raising in our midst the one we now know to be the promised Messiah and predicted Christ, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. Yes, and we thank them both for their mercy in our midst, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. I greet my beloved brothers and sisters in the words of peace of Assalamu alaikum. Brothers and sisters, I'm not up here to be long, just to open up the meeting. This is not a lecture series, and it is not a tour of Student Minister Ava Muhammad. I just wanted to set up tonight's meeting by explaining to all of you, and let me stop and say how honored and privileged I feel to be in front of such a beautiful array of all of the manifestations of the original people.
That's right. That's
in your appearance, your energy, your strength, your power, in this place where the soil is soaked with our blood.
That's right.
And it is in this place that we are going to begin to collect the debt that is owed to us. But I want to thank so much Student Ministers Andre Muhammad, James Muhammad, all of the believers and laborers here in Mississippi who reached out to bring one of the town hall meetings here. I see my beloved brother, Student Minister Anthony Muhammad, a long-time warrior, great number 55 in Memphis, Tennessee. And to see all of you, my beloved colleague, friend, and sister, Sister Patricia, Sister Student Minister Patricia. I don't want to start calling names because then I'll end up leaving someone out. Very quickly, beloved, the minister in 2017, Minister Farrakhan, held a press conference at the Watergate Hotel in Washington, D.C. And in the course of that press conference, which he characterized as a final call to black people and a final warning to the United States government and the American people, he told DJ Trump that we are willing to take 8 states. That was November 16, 2017. That same year, a month earlier, he delivered a message in Newark, New Jersey at the Holy Day of Atonement entitled Separation or Death.
That's right. That's right.
When you read the Final Call newspaper, and if you have ever read Muhammad Speaks, anytime since 1965, then without fail, beloved, you will see on the back page the Muslim program.
That's right.
What the Muslims want and what the Muslims believe. And number 4 of that program is a demand for a separate state or territory of our own due to the failure of the United States government to meet the request of numbers 1, 2, and 3 for freedom, justice, and equality. Many of us know about number 4, but a lot of us perhaps don't realize in number 5 that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad states he wants every black man and woman in America to choose whether he or she wishes to have a state or territory of their own, or whether or not we wish to stay with the children of our slave masters.
That's right.
It is very important, and there is supreme wisdom in offering that choice. And that is why in his monumental series, The Time and What Must Be Done, Minister Farrakhan stated that at a certain time, after he completed teaching the time and what must be done, that he was going to hold a vote.
That's right.
Among black people in America. Now, this was never directed in the Muslim program or in Minister Farrakhan's message to the registered Muslims of the Nation of Islam. It is directed to the 40 to 60 million descendants of slaves in America. Whether we are Muslim, Christian, Hebrew, agnostic, confused, whoever and whatever we are doing, we have a right to decide. We are still kidnapped victims. No matter that it's 4 centuries, 5 centuries, no matter how long, how much time has gone by, we are not from here. Our ancestors called this place the hells of North America, the wilderness of North America. We always lived along the equator. We like the sun. We are people of the sun. And so we were brought here because we had a payment to make.
That's right.
The black man, the red man, and the brown man at various times in our history rebelled against the will of God. And we won't go into that tonight. But we are not here by happenstance. But the point is, we have redeemed ourselves in the eyes of God. And now we are in where the Bible calls the book of Numbers.
That's right.
And now we have to purge ourselves of those who wish to continue to serve, facilitate, and stay with the rapists and murderers and robbers of our people who have stolen and continue to steal our resources and now are, as a matter of law, murdering our future.
That's right. That's right.
That's right.
The horrific cases of Botham Jean in Dallas and Tatiana Jefferson in Fort Worth. These are only cases we know about. This happens all across America every single day. But the point has come where we have no safe haven. We cannot sit in our living room and eat ice cream. We cannot spend an evening with an 8-year-old nephew in our own home watching and playing video games without being gunned down. And so we are moving toward a referendum. Since our people love to vote so much, let's vote on some real that will give us a future. And that is on the issue of separation. So that is why we are having these town hall meetings. This is the 18th town hall meeting. We are going to start making it feasible for people to electronically sign a petition.
That's right.
So that you can support us having our own territory in this land. So may Allah bless us, and I will come up to close this out briefly at the end of our esteemed panel's discussion and then the dialogue with all of you. Thank you over and over again for being out this evening. Assalamu alaikum.
All right, let's give her another round of applause. As she stated, this is a serious conversation. It's going to be interactive. Y'all all right?
Yes, sir.
Y'all ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you have something that looks like this, right, that you were given. Okay, it's a 3x5 card. You should have an ink pen as well. Okay? If you don't, make sure you get one. And as the discussion progresses, write down whatever questions that you may have. And we will collect them. And our moderator, who is Student Minister Anthony Muhammad, Miles 55, give him a round of applause. When we get to that point in the program, brothers and sisters, that's the meat where we will have a serious exchange and discussion about why we are here. Is that all right? But at this time, we want to put it in a context where Mississippi is concerned. So, without further delay, we want to bring our brother all the way from Greenville, Mississippi. He wanted me to do it, but I listened at him. I was like, brother, why should I study it and do it? It's already in your head. So please welcome all the way from Greenville, Mississippi Study Group, our brother Kareem Muhammad. Give him a round of applause as he gives you a history and an economic context of what's happening to us in Mississippi.
Take your time, brother. Take your time.
Go ahead, brother.
Welcome to Victoria. Start recording. Stop recording. Note. E8. Created. Start recording. Stop recording.
They don't want me to record. They don't want me to record. I guess I've got to follow instructions. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah. And I further give thanks of that one who came 9,000 miles by himself. Came and found among us one to be worthy to be represented and to be the first resurrected from the dead. We're talking about our God. We call Master Farrakhan Muhammad. We further bear witness of that one that he chose to be his representative. Our man that we can brag that came from our loins. That said when he met this man, he cleaned him up and threw him right back in the pile. Jump pile. Sound like some of us, Brother Mr.
Go ahead, brother.
We're talking about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Now we can talk about them two and then we can go home. But they knew that this would be a time that we would be in a permanent time, we would be a people, that we would be a tangible people. We would need to look at somebody.
Yes, sir.
We would need to have somebody that we would say, what manner of man is this? And they prepared for us a beautiful man, a magnificent man, a man in regards to what you may think or don't think of him. You know one thing about him. Who is that man? And whatever it is that he's saying, I kind of agree with some of it, if not all of it.
Go ahead.
When you get home, you're going to say you agree with all of it, but you might not say it right then. So we give honor and praise to the Honorable Louis Farrakhan and our champion, our minister, Minister Farrakhan, and those great names. I greet you. Assalamu alaikum. Hotel, free the land, power to the people. Come on.
Right.
We are here today to talk about a very serious topic.
Take time.
Separation.
That's right. Teach like man.
And we've got to take this into the highways and the byways.
That's right.
We got to get to the politicians and we got to talk about separation. We got to get to the preachers and to the churches talking about separation. We even got to get into the into the songs, as Bob Marley said, liberation song. Or the OJ says, give the people what they want. We got to make our song where we're talking about separation.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Because this is a very important topic. But it's not something that's new.
That's right. That's right.
It's not a new topic in our community.
Hello.
The Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that if we study history, it will best reward our research. And when we study our history, we'll find that our people have always resisted this white supremacy, domination, and control. In some form or another, we resisted this white supremacy. Whether it was through moderate resistance or through actual warfare. But there was a group of us that once we got over to this country, irregardless of what the circumstances, we refused to be slaves.
Right.
And we would look into the woods and to the hills, and we would see them hills that kind of resemble where we came from, and just as soon as whoever was around us bopped and allowed us to elude them, we got away. We went up to the hills. And we lived in them hills for 10 years, for 20 years, for 30 years, and when they would go up into them hills, they would find what we had built homes up in them hills. And we was farming up in them hills, and we would be willing to die for our family up in them hills.
That's right. That's right.
That's a history that we got to study. It's called the Maroons.
That's right. That's right.
Most of them don't know about the Maroons.
That's right.
Praise be to Allah. But today, brothers and sisters, back then, they didn't use the term separation, but they taught the language of separation.
Yes, sir.
The term that they used back then was migration and immigration. Now, immigration, shortly, I ain't going to talk that much about it, but immigration was something the white folk came up with. When they were trying to figure out how to get rid of them Negroes that had been just manumitted, they were talking about want some equal rights. Like David Walker and Oliver Cromwell and Henry Holland Garnett and all them boys and George the Child. How are we going to get rid of them Negroes?
That's right.
They're talking about they want to be the politicians and stuff. So they said, okay, you know, the Lords and the Chasers and the Clays out of Kentucky, all them so-called abolitionists. We call them fair play segregationists. So they don't believe in equality, they just believe in fair play. And so they said, well, let's come up with an idea. We'll go take a part of Africa, call it Liberia. We'll write a constitutional, provisional constitution, and we'll tell them that they emancipated. So immigration meant emancipation back then. But there was another term that we dealt with was called immigration. Migration, I mean. And migration was, if you study the histories of our people, you'll find that all throughout history, we began to petition the country about we wanted a land of our own. That we have got tired of being mistreated in this country because we have fought in a revolutionary war and we still was mistreated.
That's right. That's right.
And so we began to sign petitions and write petitions. So when you look at the history, you will see Henry Adams or James Ingrams or, as I said, Henry Holland Garnett and them petitioning this country saying, we want a separate country of our own. We petitioned for Oklahoma, but they denied it. They refused it.
That's right.
That's right. That's correct.
This has always been on the front of our mind. But something happened to us, brothers and sisters.
Hello.
See, anytime white America realized the greatest power that you and I ever had has been our feet.
That's right. Right.
Because anytime we really want to resist, we just got the hell on up and got up out of there. But see, that was their labor.
That's right.
So when they began to talk about we want to get up out of there, they will always ease up a little off of us. And they start giving us a little benefits. And one of the things about us as black people, because most of the time back then, most of the ones that was in power as far as black people was mulattoes.
That's right.
They came from the loins of white folks.
That's right.
This is my lovely wife. I want to give honor and praise to my lovely wife. This is why I'm still here. Last time I seen you, Sister Ava, we was in Jackson, Mississippi. The minister came there, and I was telling you, Mississippi? Oh, no. But then I met my wife, my sister. But they always would give us a little crumbs, you see, to keep us from getting away from them. And our people always wanted to be near the slave master. That's to get children from us. And so they will always give something up. And so in Mississippi, it was a little bit different.
Yes, sir.
See, Mississippi here, they didn't play in Mississippi. You did not buck white supremacy, domination, and control here. You did not, I don't care if you was black, white, whatever, you didn't buck that here.
That's right. That's right.
You did not here. They didn't play that. You either went along with it or you learned how to go work with it or work around it. Most of us worked around it. But you didn't do nothing else. So Mississippi was real brutal. So after 1865, see, black people, when you look at the American Communist Society and you look at the archives and the records, you'll see that most of the people that tried to petition to go to Liberia, it happened between 1820 and maybe 1863, Sister Ava, right? And you had about 36,000 women, and most of them came from Virginia, Tennessee. Most of them didn't come from this area because they wasn't going for that down here yet. But after 1865, see, it's something about us as a black people. Once we come out that war, we become a different person. We had a gun, we shot a few white folks. And, I'm going home, and I'm going to start me something. And so we began to petition to do, but Mississippi, they didn't play that down here. While in other states, they was allowing black people to do things and get in certain aspects. We're talking about during the time of what we call post-reconstruction.
Yes, sir.
But in Mississippi, in 1865, 1866, white folks went crazy. They was the first one came with what was called the Black Codes. They was not going to allow us to stand in front of them and talking about we're going to negotiate no doggone labor agreement. They weren't going to do nothing like that. Either nigga, you going to do what I tell you to do, I'm going to hang you. That was the bottom line in Mississippi. And so the Ku Klux Klan began to come even more so. You start seeing the Ku Klux Klan larger in Mississippi.
That's right. That's right.
And so during this period of time, something happened, Sister Ava, that put us back to sleep. See, in 1870, Mississippi got its first U.S. black senator. Harsh Weather. Negroes went right back to sleep. Oh my God, America, good old America. And so during this period of time, even though we began to get concessions about certain things, white folks in Mississippi were still bulldozing. They called it bulldozing down here.
That's right.
They called it redemption. I thought I said that was so wonderful, Sister Ava, that in 1877, our Redeemer was born. But what America called it in this area during Reconstruction, they called it the redemption period.
That's right. That's right.
Because they were trying to take everything back. But something happened in 1877.
Come on now.
Sugar, honey, iced tea. So I would say you start seeing black folks start talking about migration again. The petition. So you start hearing about migration again, and all of a sudden we start talking petitioning to get away from here. So we're saying all this to say, brothers and sisters, is that in Mississippi, we've always have tried throughout this country, separating has never been a foreign language to us. We've always tried to get away from these Europeans, these white folks. But they will always give us, as Brother Andre said, give us something to kind of put us back to speak. Every time. Then we had a Marcus Garvey, and he talked about the same thing. But then the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was given a mission, and he gave the complete mission because he gave the spiritual aspect of what we really needed. And as Sister David said, on the back of the Final Call newspaper, and in the back of the message to the black man, the Muhammad speech, you'll always find that. And so we are here today, brothers and sisters, to say in Mississippi, we have a way that we're going to work with all of our people in trying to make sure that we take the 7 or the 8 states that our minister has told us that we're going to take. And through the LOCs, hello, thinking about the Million Man March and how that came about. And we evaluating and studying how that came about and how the 64 Freedom Day came about. We're studying that and understanding that came through coalition building.
That's right, coalition.
And so the LOC is coalition building. And through the coalition building, you got to have a plan.
That's right, that's right.
And so the minister, it took us 8 years almost, I think, or 9 years to put this together. But now we have a plan that we all can sit at the table. Because at the beginning, Sir David, when we was at the table with reparations, everybody had their own flag. Everybody had their own agenda.
Yes, sir.
And we could never come up with nothing, one major agenda. But now we have one that speaks to all of our needs. It speaks to the brown man needs. It speaks to the red man needs. And once we begin to sit at the table with this, then we can start talking about how we're going to take our states back. And then our people will begin to understand. Because we talk about Mount Bayou in Mississippi as I close. For Mount Bayou is the model of Mississippi. For in 1885, a group of men got together and came and got up and built a city. Built a city.
Yes.
And in 20 years, that city had stores, it had buildings, it had schools, and it didn't have one thing in it, no white folks. The only time they had a white man in there, when he came in there, and he put a telephone in there, and they watched him the whole day he was in there, and got him on up out of there. That's right. But something that they had that we have a problem with, they had more than anything, they had churches. And so they emulated, as I closed, what they did was they emulated the same people that they were trying to get away from. Right. This time, we're not going to do it because we got our man in front of us, the Honorable Minister Farrakhan. Thank you, beloved.
Let's show him some love, y'all. Let's show him some love. We really want to get to the meat of this, okay? We've had enough conversation, but we need to talk to you. So at this time, this is where rubber meets road. You know what I'm saying? Y'all see I pull out a checkbook because I'm going to be first on deck, okay? So what we're about to ask you for now is to help support this effort. As you heard, this is what, the 18th stop? So we need to continue this. So one part about liberation, it has to be fun. Anybody in here that knows anything about getting free and being free is freedom ain't free. I heard somebody say if you don't want to pay your light bill, stay in the dark. If you don't want to fund your own liberation, hey, you're a slave. So we are asking you, and I got $100 towards it. Who can match me with a $100 donation? We're not there. Go my sister get her name. We want to acknowledge those. Come on now, we can, come on, hold on now. We got some ground rules. That sister is giving $100, and at least we can do is show our debt of gratitude with the hands clap. Thanking her for her. What's her name? Sister Raja Mahat, $100. Brother James Muhammad. South Haven Study Group, $100. Let's move it along quickly. Man, who else want to match the $100? Brother Louis Ali, $100. Give him a round of applause. Come on now, we're moving right along. Who else would match a $100 donation? Got my brother Dennis Muhammad in the back. FOI for Mars number 55, $100. Give him a round conversation that is so important. Anybody else want to match it with 100? Another $100 donation? Uh-oh, Sister Desi over here, $100. Give her a round of applause. Anyone else? Moving right along. Anyone else? If you don't have 100, you may have 50. We'll acknowledge 50. Who? Sister Patricia Muhammad. Hold on. Sister Student Minister Patricia Muhammad out of Hollis Springs, Mississippi. Held it down, a black woman in Mississippi for over 20 years, $50. Give her a round of applause. Now, show some love. Who else would match her $50 donation? Sister Elizabeth? South Haven Study Group, $50. My brother, Brother Omar Baruti, $50 donation. $50, Brother Omar Baruti. Who else would match? 50 or 100. If you got 100, we're not going to stop you. Brother Najee, from the Hollis Springs Study Group, $100. Give him a round of applause now. Who?
Ray and Jamila Muhammad.
Ray and Jamila Muhammad, $100 donation. Give them a round of applause. Oh, you're so beautiful. Clap for yourself. You love yourself better than that, right? Who's that? Brother Larry, Student Minister Larry Muhammad of the Greenville Study Group all the way here. How much? $80. Give them a round of applause. Thank you, sir. Who else would like to give, brothers and sisters? Got a 50? May not have a 50. You may have a 20, 10, or 5. Who's got 20s, 10s, 5? We want to acknowledge you. Give my brother, get him right there with that 20 he's holding up. Young soldier. You don't even want to be acknowledged. You don't even want to talk about it. You just want to be about it. Give him a round of applause. Come on now, look at that. Who's that? Brother Sophia, stand up, brother. Look at this young man. Look at this young man. I told you our young people are just a little bit different.
Put my 20 with Sophia's one.
Uh-oh, Brother Student Minister Anthony Muhammad says, put his 20 with Brother Sophia's one, making that a 21. Give him a round of applause. We got another one of our young men. What's your name, son? Brother Zion. Ali. How much it is? $5 donation. Give that baby a round of applause. Because you know they're killing our children. They're body slamming our babies for just trying to leave school. Uh-oh, we got the sound man behind here. Brother Charles Muhammad, give him a round of applause for $20. Brother Hoyle, the ever present, supporting the SOS radio program. Give Brother Hoyle Muhammad a round of applause. How much is that, Brother Hoyle?
20, and my brother Anonymous give 20.
Anonymous 20 and Brother Hoyle 20. Give them a round of applause. Anybody else at 10s and 5s? We got my Brother Doe Belly. Come on, sister. Sister Patricia,
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
got brothers' hands up over here. Give them a round of applause. Give our brothers. Brother Brian, who you got?
Thank you.
Dr. Murphy gives 20.
Brother Dr. Murphy, 20. Who was that gave 5? Brother Adrian, give him a round of applause for that $5 donation. Sister Tamiko, who you got? Brother who?
Willie.
Brother Willie. Stand up, Brother Willie. I gave my brother in the belly of the beast. Welcome home, man. Give him a round of applause. Welcome home. We got work to do, Brother Willie. What you got, sis? Sister Jada, $20 donation. Give him a round of applause. Sister Angela, 20. And who else, Sister Desi? Who? Brother Maurice, $20. Get my brother on the front right here.
Tony Brown.
Brother Tony Brown. Black man, $10 donation. And who else? Angelia, Vince, and Aisha. Give them all a round of applause. My daughter, $20 donation. Nikita Muhammad. Give her a round of applause. Brothers and sisters, at this time, whatever, oh, my sister, she wants to be, what you got, Queen? $25 donation, Brother Kareem and his beautiful wife. Give them a round of applause. All praises to
Liberation Movement.
Black Liberation Movement, what's that?
Black Liberation
How
Movement.
much? $20 donation. Give them a round of applause. Brother Charles, $20 donation. Sister Shamika Muhammad, $20 donation. Give her a round of applause. And for those, if you want to give by Cash App, just put $ Elizabeth Webb, and she represents the South Haven Study Group. Okay? We're going to put this to good use, brothers and sisters. The days are gone. See, the Honorable Louis Farrakhan says this. If you want to lead in this hour, you got to be willing to put your life there.
That's right. That's right.
Y'all, did you hear me?
That's right. That's right.
Because betrayal has been constant among us.
That's right. That's right. It's going to be a war.
So if you want to do it by Cash App, $ Elizabeth Webb. Okay? So at this time, dear brothers and sisters, pass the receptacles, those who have not had an opportunity, whatever you desire to give. And as you do that, give yourselves a round of applause. And we certainly thank you for your charitable contribution. Uh-oh. Brother Mayor, Jonestown, where you at? Who? Brother Kenneth. Stand up, black man. We got our brother here all the way from Jonestown, Mississippi. Give him a round of applause. The mayor of Jonestown, Mississippi. Brother Mayor, ain't nothing but black folks down there, ain't it? So brothers and sisters, we thank you for your charitable contribution. For whatever you have given, as much as 100. And I saw my brother walk in the room. I want to acknowledge him. I call him the Lion of the Delta. He's here all the way from Arkansas. He'll get you. Where is he? I saw him. There he is. Stand up, my brother Shabaka Africa of Africa Books. He is the president of the Christian Family Bench of the NAACP. What's going on, brother? So, dear family, at this time, I don't know why I'm in program. Oh, y'all want to know the Cash App? It's $ Elizabeth, that's ELIZABETH, Webb. That's it. I was fixing to say .com, but just $ Elizabeth Webb, okay? So at this time, we are at that time, brothers and sisters, okay? I want to bring to the microphone he who will moderate. Have y'all got your cards? Get ready to get your pens out to write your questions, okay? So at this time, brothers and sisters, if you would please receive, and I want to properly bring this brother up, because this brother has been a mentor for me and to me in the ministry of the Nation of Islam, as I have grown as a Muslim and continue to grow. He has been a counselor for me, a friend, all of my 26 years in the Nation of Islam. He is the student minister in the Mid-South representative of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan of Muhammad Mosque, number 55. Please, family, help me receive with a warm round of applause, Student Minister Anthony Muhammad.
Assalamualaikum. Peace be unto everyone in the room. We start with the name of Almighty God, the Beneficent, the Merciful. We're not going to get in this room and close the door, as we've done, and argue over the names of God.
That's right, that's right.
Whatever name you choose to call him, he is that and more. There is no name that can encompass all that God is. We thank him for his many blessings, and the greatest of his blessing is revelation that he extends to the human family as we are taught through the mouth of his prophets. Again, we're not going to get in this room and close the door and argue over which one was greater. They all came from the one God.
That's right. That's right.
We thank him for Moses and the Old Testament, and we thank him for Jesus and the New Testament, and we thank him for Muhammad and the Holy Quran. Peace be upon these worthy servants of Almighty God. But I have to thank Allah for his intervention in our affairs, in the person of Master Farrakhan Muhammad, to whom praises are due forever. And thank him for finding one among us that he could lay a weighty word to most honorable Elijah Muhammad. And thank them both for the champion that has shook this world up.
That's all right.
They don't know whether to talk about him or to be quiet.
Yes, sir.
They don't know what to do with him because he just won't get along. He just won't act right. Let me greet you once again. Peace, my brothers and sisters. Assalamu alaikum. Now, pause for the cause is you just don't see how beautiful you look from here. This is Coldwater, Mississippi.
Yes, sir.
And we got black people in here. Y'all ain't playing. Dr. Richard is telling me you look so beautiful in here. Give yourselves a round of applause. We're going to ask questions. We're going to have the panelists speak. There is no wrong or dumb question.
That's right.
The only dumb question is the one that we don't ask. So if you want to know, ask. Because you'll walk away with preconceived ideas.
That's right.
And you have speakers here who can help us with that.
Hello.
So we want you to ask questions, whatever those questions are. Whatever your agreement or disagreement is, this is a family discussion. And we got the family in the house. We got the security, we got the Black Panthers in here, so we know the place is secure. We got all of them. We got the Nation of Islam is in here. Any Christians in here? We have Christians in the house. We have people that just look, I'm just hanging out. You know, we have all of us are in here.
That's right.
We thank God for each and every one of them. So now, before we start, we're going to give each panelist 5 minutes to speak to you and allow them to say a word. And if you don't mind, I want to start with our brother here, who's here, over this organization, my brother, Brother Patrick Alexander. Can you allow him to say a few words for us, please? Give him a round of applause, Brother Patrick.
Take off your shoes. We're on holy ground.
Yes, sir.
Literally on holy ground. As the chief organizer and facilitator of the Black Liberation Movement, I extend great thanks and I'm honored at what I'm seeing tonight.
Yes, sir.
Almost to tears at what I'm seeing tonight. I'm sure the moderator will have questions that we can answer. I want to take this moment to just acknowledge some very critical and special people in this moment. It's a very special moment for me. It's been a long road, and to see the coming together, the organizational power and strength that exists in this room is heartwarming. The battle has been long, but now we can see the combination of these organizations coming together. And I can say that we're about to be formidable in the fight.
That's right.
I want to give a shout out first to some very critical ancestors that I've learned to draw strength from. That first ancestor is our brother Chukwe Lumumba. And that second ancestor is a brother that I'm learning to draw great strength from. It's our brother Alfred Skip Robinson, also known as XZ. I want to take time out to give a shout out to some of my teachers that I have drawn great strength, motivation, and guide from. I want to shout out Dr. Laverne Murphy of the New Life Movement, Chicago, Illinois. I also want to shout out my beloved Dr. Isaac Richmond of the CORE organization. I also want to shout out my beloved brother from across the river, the president of the Creighton County NAACP, my brother and teacher, Shabaka Afro. I want to shout out also some brothers in this room that I extended an invitation to that showed up. And you come to learn in this fight, in this struggle for liberation of our people, that it's very few that you call and they actually come to the fight. Very few that you call and they actually come to the fight. I want to shout out Mayor Kenneth Lester of Jonestown, Mississippi. We talk more about these black townships and these brothers that lead these black townships in the talk. I also want to shout out a brother that I admire very well. He probably wouldn't even expect me to acknowledge him at this moment, but he's been a beacon of light for me as a young businessman coming up in this very community. He's a pillar of strength for me. I want to shout out my brother William Earl Davis. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Raise your hands, sir. Raise your hands, brother William. Thank you. And I also want to shout out a brother that might not expect me to acknowledge him either. But I've grown to have great respect for this brother. This brother controls our police force here in Coldwater. I want to shout out our Chief of Police, Brother Andre Todd. And the organization that's here, I want to shout out my beloved mother of the Republic of New Africa, Mama Ayo. Yes, ma'am. I want to shout out my brother of the Black Panther Party when I called the brother answered. Our brother Doe Belly and our brother Tony Brown of the new Black Panther Party. And I've already mentioned our brother Shabaka Africa of the NAACP and our brother Dr. Laverne Murphy of the New Life Movement. But I also want to shout out our brother from Chicago, my brother, I think he just stepped out, Brother Taham.
Let's give our brother another round of applause. We have another beautiful young lady up here. I think she's the vice president of the Black Liberation Movement, our sister Crystal Giles. Let's give her a round of applause.
When I was sitting here listening to everyone speak, I said, oh, I'm the baby of the bunch. But Brother Patrick gave me the title Secretary of Information and Education a couple years ago because I am a student, forever a student. I'm a reader. We actually started an organization, Oasis Literacy Center, before the Black Liberation. It kind of evolved into the Black Liberation Movement. And you know me, you know my passion is literacy. And when I say literacy, I'm not just speaking on the ability to read.
That's right, that's right.
Because we got to write, and we have to think critically as well.
That's correct.
I work with the youth, and so one of the things I had a problem with was our youth are so unprepared, not just academically, mentally, socially, no structure. And so that's where I wanted to begin. I wanted to meet our children in the beginning so we can progress throughout life. And so as we evolved and became the Black Liberation Movement, we started studying our ancestors and our elders. And one of the things that I read over and over again was Dr. Francis Cress Wilson and Dr. Neely Fuller's definition of racism, white supremacy, because Dr. Neely Fuller taught us that if we don't understand racism, white supremacy, what it is and how it works, everything else that we think we know will only confuse us. And so as I delved into that definition, I noticed that there were 9 areas of battle that our beloved ancestor and our elders spoke of: education, economics, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. And as we began to study and work in our communities, we added on another one, health. Because we understand that our health and our very well-being is being attacked as well. And so what we're doing at the Black Liberation Movement is we're wanting to take control of those areas of battle, what we call life, because they all work simultaneously to keep us under the foot of racism, white supremacy. So, having said all that, I'm so excited and honored to be sitting at the table with some of the masters tonight. I'm so honored. And I met Brother Andre. Well, I met Brother James a couple years ago. Met Brother Andre maybe 6 weeks ago. And it's been a journey, y'all. It's been a ride. And just write those questions down, and we're here. I'm just so excited. I'm kind of at a loss for words because it's truly an honor to be sitting at the table with so many masters. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's give her a round of applause.
Now, brothers and sisters, some of your questions to me are very beautiful. Some of them are hard for me to read, so we're going to go through the ones we can. It's like you sound like I wrote it, you know, but it looked like. But the first question I want to ask is for Student Minister Ava is, what do we mean when we say separation? And what will happen to the blacks who do not want to separate, who do not wish to separate? Y'all got good questions.
Going really briefly to Brother Kareem's point earlier about the length of time this question has existed. The process of separation is actually rooted in the creative process itself. And you will see in the book of Genesis immediately that God separated the night and the day.
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead.
There can be no life and no creative process without a separation. Every single person in here came out of the womb of a woman. And we lived in her womb for 9 months. And we drew our nourishment from her. We grew a brain from her bloodstream.
That's right.
There came a time, however, when we were ready to come forth. We started out as a plant tied by an umbilical cord. We became a fish swimming in a bag of water. And we've gone through all the stages of creation before we became the supreme being of creation, of God's creation, with no one above us but Him when we came forth. Had we not separated from our mother, it would have killed us as well as her. And so even in natural relationships, in order for each to be able to manifest his or her identity, we have to have an individual existence. Now, when it comes to black people in America, we don't have a single creative or intellectual thought that leaves our mind and comes into existence without being tainted.
That's right.
It's tainted because every plan, every idea that we have has to undergo a process that requires the consent of white people's damaged perception of reality. And it has to be made palatable to the children of our slave masters before we can express it. So what is meant by separation is our ability to think, plan, and act independently. That's what it means in the and we can talk about this as time passes and as this develops. But very quickly, I want you to take a look after tonight at the Mormons, who were persecuted in the northeastern United States because of their particular belief system. And they kept moving across the continent, being killed and persecuted. And finally, they found themselves in the state of Utah. Now, they didn't buy it. They just moved. Thank you. They just took it. They moved in, and they populated. Okay? Now, every Mormon doesn't live in Utah. Okay? But you and I can fly in and out of Salt Lake City. However, when you go into Utah, and you don't have to be a Mormon to go there, but when you go into Utah, you will find yourself having to adapt, if you stay there, to the way of life of a Mormon. And so we as black people have a right and a duty to our ancestors to return to our original selves.
That's right.
And we are entitled to have some of this continent, which we made the richest and most powerful on the earth. So yes, the whole earth is ours. But we're not going anywhere until we get some of this and spend time in it together so that we can return to our original selves before we go out and become a global force again.
Let's give a round of applause.
Beautiful answer.
Now, this is for any of the panelists. What advice would you give to the youth to help towards separation? So this is for anyone to take. What advice would we give to our young people to help in this movement towards separation?
Yesterday, I had the opportunity to visit the Civil Rights Museum of Mississippi. And there was this one particular display that caught my eye. And I can't remember the man's name, but it was a white man. And during this time, there was a lot of violence, and you know, they were calling them white thugs. And what he did was he noticed that. He said, hold on, I'm going to take that energy, and I'm going to create the Citizens Council with that energy. So what we need to do is we need to meet our youth where they are and stop saying what they need to do and what they need to be. And we have to create opportunities and spaces for them to be themselves. And that's one thing that we've been adamant about at Black Liberation Movement, is creating spaces and places to put in the right faces, as Brother Patrick likes to say, in those spaces. So finding out what it is, where their passions lie, and don't be so quick to condemn what it is, because our youth have a creative genius in them that is often suppressed in the school systems that they attend. So we have to create it for them.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. You all have some very beautiful questions. We're going to keep going. One of them, the question is, through coalition building, how do we take these states? They use the word take here, and it says, how do we mentally prepare ourselves to move into a separate state or territory? How do we mentally prepare ourselves for such a thing? Brother Patrick?
Yes, sir. That's a great question. I almost want to know who posed that question, so I can make sure. Brother Kareem. Oh, okay. But never mind. Yes, sir. No. Yeah, all seriousness. Demographically, there's a lot of projections that things can be done on a national level. But I'm of the understanding that how can we move nationally if we can't move demographically? Okay, we have to begin to start working with working models that's small enough and manageable enough for us to be able to see that they work. It's kind of something what we're doing with the Black Liberation Movement. And if y'all understand, like I always present all over the world, wherever we go, wherever we're projected at, the demographical setup of Mississippi. We really need to take a critical look at the demographical setup of Mississippi. And these states that our forefathers and elders have already deemed states that black people should be taking control of. Notice I did say taking control of. Taking control of. We have predominantly black townships throughout this state and other states, but I'm specifically talking about what I know, which is Mississippi, which is the blackest state per capita in the United States of America. Jackson, Mississippi is the second blackest city in the United States of America. So if we're talking about liberation, if we're talking about separation, one of the main focal points we should be looking at is Mississippi. Okay, we got black townships all over here. So if we cannot control demographics, case in point, an example, a town just like Coldwater. If we can't control that, we can't be talking about controlling nations. So we start demographically, to answer the question. We start demographically, and we start showing working models of how we can survive. Can we provide our own food? Can we provide our own water? Can we create markets of distribution? You know what I'm saying? Those are the things that we should be looking at. We start incrementally, and we start with demographical control.
To my brother's point, there are black people who know how to do all of these things that he's talking about. We have the skill and the talent. And this question used the word coalition. And I just want to chime in that the FBI said in the counterintelligence program that their #1 denial objective was to prevent a coalition of us coming together. That would be the beginning of what they call a Mau or a true black revolution. When we learn to correlate, or we have a coalition of us together as we have in this room today.
Yes, sir.
So now this is a question that I think that I'm going to ask a student minister, Dr. Ava, to answer her and Brother Andre, because I know that this is on people's hearts. Separated states based on religious affiliation and control. That's what it says. And it sounds like what they're asking is, are we talking about separating so everybody will dress like us and act like us or be like us? Where everybody's going to separate have to have the same religion. That's what it sounds like. If I'm misquoting your question, I apologize, but it just says separated states based on religious affiliation and control. And I think they're trying to say, everybody got to be a Muslim.
Point of clarity. Point of clarity. And I'm going to use my age of 74 to be able to do it because I jotted the notes. Basically, there's an indication that the Mormons that was a religious group. And most of the people in that area, that settled in that area, adhered to that particular. And that's what I was alluding to. Is this concept based on that? And while I got the floor, they are these black towns in Mississippi that this group need to embrace, as the brother said, as a model. There's also 18 all-black towns or cities in Oklahoma that are in dire need of us to get
Yes,
a
sir.
hand and use as a
Thank
model.
you for clarifying your question, dear brother. Let's give him a round of applause.
I can be pretty succinct, really, and short. I'm reminded of something the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad asked him a simple question: what's the best religion? The best religion is to do unto others as you would have others do unto you. In Islam, you say you want for your brother what you want for yourself. As we all know, religion is not what you profess.
That's right, that's right.
It's what we practice. So the answer to the question of us having to be all alike or follow the model of the Mormons is absolutely, positively no.
That's right.
With that, people talk about, you have uniform and uniformity. There's a difference. We're not asking everybody to be uniform, wear headpieces, suit and bow tie. No, we're not uniform in here, are we? We're all not in the same uniform, but we're all thinking alike right about now. So that is the concept.
Well, I would just give you one picture, but it's not an illusion, it's reality. It's reality. October the 16th, 1995. Okay. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan called for 1 million black men, not 1 million Muslims. And I don't say that to moonwalk on my belief.
Right.
Islam is not a religion. Islam is the nature of God. Islam is submission to the will of God. Jesus, Isa, was a Muslim. He submitted his will to God's will. He did not speak English. There was no such language. He was in Africa and he was black. And when he met people, he said, Assalamu alaikum. He didn't say, what's up? How you doing? Good morning. But when that black man, Louis Farrakhan, called for 1 million black men to meet him, not for a religion, but for a day of atonement and reconciliation of black men. A day to say to the black woman, and to black offspring that going forward, we are going to take back our place as the protector and provider of the black nation, because it's been the black woman who has had to step up in these 4 centuries to keep this family together. Our enemy, the Caucasian, not Christian, Caucasian. Sandra Bland didn't get pulled over because she was a Christian. She got pulled over and they gave us back a dead body because she's black. Harriet Tubman was a black woman. We don't know her as a Christian or a nationalist or a Hebrew, but you got put in chains and manacles and raped and sold because you got melanin. You are the original people of the planet Earth. That's the mindset you need to have to be in this 7th state or territory. Do you recognize yourself as the maker, the owner, the cream of the planet Earth, the God of the universe? No, it ain't no religion. It's about being civilized. It's about loving one another as God loves us. Because without a God, how in the world would we have survived what we have been through? Not even young.
And these 3 questions, I think, are very poignant, very detailed, and we'll get the panelists to start. One of them says, do we have a process that will start the separation, such as creating government systems? One says, what is the format for which we will govern ourselves in education before we join? One of them said, has the planning begun to establish the municipal needs and functional needs within the separate states once granted? So it's basically the same thing as we started the idea of putting together governments. So Sister Ms. Davis, she said, yes ma'am, but you can answer the question.
All right, real quick, let me just say this. The United States of America is not a nation. That's right. It is a political union, and she defines herself in the U.S. Code as a federal corporation. That's right, that's right. But the United States is a political union of 50 sovereign states.
That's right.
Come on. Okay? Each one has its own flag,
That's right.
its own constitution, its own set of laws that govern the essentials of life: birth, death, marriage. All right? When you are a citizen of the state of Mississippi, you don't have to go through a process to become a citizen of the United States because you already are.
That's right.
We had towns. My brother talked about townships. We're sitting in one. All right? We are the people that built the infrastructure of the United States of America. We laid down her cities. We developed her water systems. We taught her people how to eat with a fork and a knife and a spoon. All right? The process begins with the decision that we want to live in areas where we can have a safe haven.
That's right.
And that are dominated by us.
That's right.
But people in Louisiana are there with boundaries around them because there was disagreement among white people.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
New Hampshire is not like California.
That's right. Listen.
And that's why there are lines and different rules. However, you can move between the different states. And the only reason I raised the Mormons was to say to the question, you don't have, all black people don't have to be herded into one area. Okay? You can be black and be anywhere, but don't you want a place that you can call yours? live in Israel. And I don't even want to get into how that shouldn't even be there. But as a matter of illustration, all Jews don't live in Israel, but find me a Jew that doesn't support Israel. If you find me a Jew that doesn't support Israel, I will give you $10,000 cash from Brother Andre's But once we make a decision that we're going to begin to populate,
that's some heavy stuff, sister.
Then praise be to Allah. When we start to populate, this is like a purge that's going on right now. We have to identify who wants to do this. And I have no question in my mind, we already have the skill sets to do absolutely anything that needs to be done. Because again, to this day, I just found out it was a black woman. I just found this out recently. Gladys West, whose algorithms led to the GPS. Yeah. This global positioning system. You know, when you go on Google and how do I get to Main Street? It's a black woman that made that possible. Black women, black men who sent them to the moon. Should have sent them all to the moon. But the point is, yes, we have to start. We're looking for people to think like that, laying out blueprints. We laid out Washington, D.C. We're responsible for its architecture. We're responsible for everything from traffic lights to open heart surgery. You know, and so again, as my brother said about growing food and regaining our control over land. But we have to activate our love for independence. That's what's been lost to us. And we have finally, as my sister has said, we finally produced a generation of young people who are not interested in bowing to whites. They're not interested in it. They're interested in being in power. And so we owe it to them, and we owe it to our ancestors to make this move. That's right.
One of the things I do want to say, sometimes we refer the questions to Dr. Muhammad is because she is studying this.
That's true.
And many times when she answers a question, what do you say? Wow, I didn't see it like that. Because sometimes we think in terms of forests, but the person who studies it thinks in terms of trees, and they've dealt with the details of the thing that you and I may not have dealt with. So when she asks you, like, okay, I get that. So we ask the question. We're not trying to slight anybody. I just want you all to know that. Okay. So one of the things is, there's two questions here. There's a young brother that's 13 years old, and it really said, she said that we have young people who are not interested in bowing down. They're interested in being in charge. This young brother said, I'm an operator of heavy equipment.
Come on.
And I'm leaving or leading or learning, I'm learning land development. 13 years old. Land development. He says, how can the youth help build the nation? It's worth all of us coming to this meeting today just to see our young My brother Patrick is going to take his question. Yeah. How can the youth help build this nation that we're talking about?
I'll tell you why I want to take this question.
Go ahead, brother.
Because that right there is what's going to build this nation. That right there. And I'm going to say this. But that brother will have no land to build on until we make the decision to have self-determination and to begin to act in a mannerism that young man can develop. Simply that. Self-determination. Until we get the testicular fortitude
Come on now.
to do what it is that we need to do. That young man will have no land to develop. I said among people all the time, Mercedes, I'm gonna be short. And I studied the mindset of our people right here in Mississippi. And I have watched old black people go to their grave with 99 acres of land.
That's right.
100 acres of land.
That's right.
I said, sir, what do you do with your land? With your children? I sent them off to be doctors and lawyers. I sent them off to be doctors and lawyers. Then they died. I said, what about the children coming back to the land? They don't want to come back to the land. Land is the basis of wealth. Land is the basis of wealth. We have young brothers. I have understood and seen that our young have no fear. They have no fear. We scared. We scared. We scared. We waiting on a Savior. Those the Saviors right there. We have to do something to put in their way a map and a blueprint so they can work with it. I'm very proud. I'm very proud of you, brother. I appreciate you.
Because I can certainly appreciate this young man stepping forward like that. But the deeper question is, he asked, what can the youth do to help?
Yes.
Notice he said do. But the question deeper for me is, what are we going to do, which is what you alluded to help them and to position them in such a way. Because one thing I've learned about children and what I do professionally, it's as though there is something in them that they sense cowardice. And they sense superficial people, and they know when you playing with them by just observation. The empirical data that they take in by way of a conversation. It is something about our children today, dear family, that we cannot play with this generation. I just want to say that.
That's right. Well, we having a conversation now. Now, I have 3 questions, and I think they are related. Do we think, or do you think that it is important to teach our people about who we are before we go into these states? And the second one is how will we address our internal behavioral problems to reduce the impact within these separate states? How will we address our internal, our internal problem? We all are happy today, but we'll look at each other funny tomorrow. You know us, right? Tell the truth now. You mad at my bow tie. I'm mad at my brother's tan. You know what I mean? It don't take much for us to dislike each other. How will we address our internal problem?
That's right.
To reduce the impact within these states. In other words, we're taking ourselves with us when we go. Then when we get there, we're going to be who we are when we get there. How are we going to deal with it? This is a conversation we're going to have.
That's right.
So anyone on the panel, Dr. Muhammad?
Yes, sir. We have gone as far as we can in the white man's educational, economic, financial, religious paradigm.
That's right.
That's our problem. That's why we don't know who we are. Minister Farrakhan said it like this: as long as we live with white people, we will live under white people. Again, one of our problems is we see one another through the specter of their sight. Because they shape and mold us. It's a strange and bizarre phenomenon, but it's actual. And so this is why, as my brother said, I don't like his bow tie, I don't like her hairdo, I don't like, we are, I'm afraid of those drug dealers, and I'm afraid, we parrot what the owner says. It's like Malcolm used to say, we sick, master. He's got a cold, you're fine, but we are sick. You hear it today. This case where this white female cop murdered. Talk about our youth and our future being wiped out. 26-year-old black man who did everything right. Just get an education, get a good job. That's a slave. Conduct yourself properly, and you'll be fine. Lie. He was an accountant. He was college educated. He went to work. He went home. He was eating ice cream in his own home. And this white woman burst into his apartment and killed him. Let me show you in no limit of time why we have to leave.
Come on.
How you can't educate yourself up out of this. In this. You got a black woman judge. Tammy Kemp. Mammy Kemp. Now finally, we didn't get justice.
No, we didn't.
Because justice is equal. Okay? But we got something that might be called a measure. When that jury went back and found this woman guilty of murder.
Right.
The black female judge came out from behind the bench and came down and hugged Miss Scarlett. That's why we have to separate. No, we'll be fine. We will not be us when we get among ourselves. When we were segregated, we didn't have the kind of rampant crime that we have now. The neighbor of Tatiana Jefferson called the police, called death. That's why the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said, make your own neighborhood a safe and decent place to live. Because I'm not saying sometimes we don't need law enforcement. That's why the Nation of Islam has the fruit of Islam. Because we need enforcement. Yes. However, who's the enforcer? You don't call King Kong, you don't call rhinoceros to your house when you're having trouble. They are already doing what they are trained to do, which is to kill us. So, had we been in a safe, decent, and that is a relatively safe and decent area, it's black. However, because we live under white people, we have a damaged perception of reality. So after all of the killings from Trayvon Martin all the way down and back to Emmett Till and back before that, and all the nameless black people who are buried in the ground in Mississippi at the hands of white people, after all of that, you still call 911. That's called, what did they call it in the Final Call newspaper? Epigenetics, which teaches that trauma passes from generation to generation. So we have to, people that have asked at town hall, don't we need to unite first? We can't unite. We've tried every kind of way.
That's right.
We're not void of effort.
That's right.
But when I was a little girl, you in Columbus, Ohio, in a black community, you could leave a door open all night and nobody would say, oh my God, the door is open. But now that we're integrated and we've become some melanated white people, now we are trained like a dog to call death. In Chicago, and I close on this, several years ago, a black man and his son is in college. He comes home for a break. They have an argument. And the father gets distressed and calls the police. The police come, and this is it's not a duplex, but it's where one apartment is on top of the other. So they have a downstairs neighbor, Miss Betty Jones, who they asked her, could you, when the police get here, can you let them in to show them? He's calling the police to de-escalate this argument between him and his son. And we know the outcome of that. The cops pulled up in front of the house and came out the car shooting. They killed the neighbor and the son. So whatever is over there in the new territory. Oh, and by the way, as the minister told Donald Trump, you all know how to move people. That's right. Because you do it all the time. They move us all the time. We're just saying, yeah, they call that big pretty word gentrification. But that's displacement. That's a domestic diaspora. Okay? So he's starting with the idea of negotiating for this land. But whether it works that way or not, it is God who is saying, come out of her, my people. And lastly, when he called the children of Israel, which was prophetic, talking about us, from the book of Genesis, that's us, the land that God promised to the children of Israel was already occupied, according to the Bible. Come on now. And not only were there people there, they were giants, and they had built cities. Yes, ma'am. Think about it.
Brothers and sisters, how many are having a good time? Having a good time? But for the sake of time, we're going to have to wind down for the sake of time. We have been asked to keep to a certain time.
Yes, sir.
So, I don't know. I think we should have a vote. I have a question for Dr. Muhammad. One more question. I think we should vote. But I don't know if that's the protocol I'm going to ask.
No, we have a petition to sign.
That's the question. She said we have a petition to sign. Here's the question. Someone asked the question, how can a petition help us with separating from the white man? And I think that is a good question because we can explain what that is. I want to ask Dr. Muhammad, will she explain why do we have a petition? We're going to give you the address that you can sign the petition.
Yes, ma'am. Well, we also have some copies here. So when we leave tonight, it is a petition seeking our support for a separate state or territory of our own. And whether or not we wish to live there, it's called Project Separation, a new land, a new beginning. And it recites, praise be to Allah, it recites number 4 of what the Muslims want, where the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is saying that we are entitled not only to separate state or territory of our own, but to have our needs met for 20 to 25 years. And by the way, the minister has stated, he spoke at the NCOBRA convention this year, reparations is land. It's not money. We don't want a pile of papers with dead white people on it that is declining in value. As my brother said, land is wealth. That is why when I was in law school, we had 2 sections of property law: personal property and real property. Okay? Personal property, that's your Jordans and your jewelry or whatever. And then real property or real estate, which is land. You can't plant $1 in the dirt and it grows food. You can't build a house out of $100 bills. You can't do you can't dress in money. As long as you have land, you can feed yourself. You can clothe yourself. You can put a roof over your head. And when our people in Savannah in 1865 were asked by General Sherman and Lincoln's war secretary, what is it you want? They said, we want land. We want to work the same land we've been working, but we want to work it for ourselves. And that land was allocated in what is now called Hilton Head Island, which is a resort, and parts of South Carolina. I think Brother Kareem talked about 1877, when the federal government basically gave everything back to white folks. So this ain't the first time at the rodeo. Okay, but it's time to get this done on the real.
Let's give all of our panelists a round of applause.
In the near future, the minister will call for a referendum. Which is, a referendum is when a community votes on a specific issue and votes directly, not through representatives, but each casts a vote directly. And that's what the town hall meetings are to do, is to alert our people. And they don't have to all be conducted or hosted by the Nation of Islam. And we're working on developing a guidebook. Brother mentioned the local organizing committees. There are a number of organizations represented here tonight. When the children of Israel went out and left Egypt, they were in tribes. Okay? They didn't let the fact that they had different tribes stop. They had one thing, though, that they agreed on. We want to get out of Dodge. That's what they agreed upon. We want to get out from under Pharaoh. And once you're out, then you can work together to decide how you want things to go from there forward.
Brothers and sisters, I have a hard job of bringing this to a close. And it's hard because I'm so excited about what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing. And I know you have more questions. So if you would get your questions that you have, write them down. We will get them to our correspondents here and try to find a way to respond to them. But whatever questions you have, please write them down and just get them to us. If we didn't, or if your question wasn't heard today, or we didn't read your question, we have it here. We'll make sure we get them. This is what we are trying to do. Let's give the panelists a round of applause for all that they're doing. We thank them. And we want to give each one of them a minute or two for closing remarks. We'll have prayer and the petition. I don't want us to leave, because if you say you agree, how many agree? You agree? Then let us at least put your name, your John Hancock, on the petition, okay? Let's show we do that. You know, so yo, put your Kunta Kinte. That's a better way to put it. Put your Kunta Kinte. I love it. Thank you, Doctor. And so let's start with our Sister Giles. At the end, we'll come and we will have our closing remarks.
I heard someone say that intelligence is not what is being said, but the questions that are asked. And so the questions asked tonight generated some great dialogue. And it's exciting. It's exciting. Now we just have to start doing. Thanks.
I just want to make them straight to the point. As I just said to my sister, we wanted the studied version. Not tossing from the hip. We want people that are looking at this in detail. And I myself will begin to devote more time to looking at this process, because if we are to be involved in it, we have to be informed, properly informed, effectively informed. So I'm excited. Me and this brother and this gathering and those of us involved, we need to do this. Make the black fist that I see my brothers put up and come together and make this work. Assalamu alaikum.
I'm going to end with these remarks, and it may take 2 minutes as opposed to 1. And I'm going to speak from some of my teachers that's sitting in the audience. I think they do this honor. There was a wise Indian chief that had 3 grandsons. And the grandsons came to the wise Indian chief and they said, "Grandfather, we want to go to white man's school." The Indian chief said, "You want to go to white man's school?" He said, "Well, I'll send you to white man's school." So he summoned the white man's school, and they went on, they pursued, and they got their degrees. And they came back to their grandfather only to find him on his dying bed. And as they approached their grandfather, The grandfather said, you went to white man's school and you gained education. What did you learn? The first grandchild said, grandfather, I became a marine biologist. The second grandchild said, grandfather, I became an astrophysicist. The third grandchild said, grandfather, I became a clinical psychologist. Grandfather said, in his dying breath, he said, which one of you learned to grow an ear of corn?
Wow. Come on now.
Which one of you learned to grow an ear of corn? So we'll die if we don't learn to feed ourselves. Some basic fundamental things that we have to learn and have a self-determination to do. Very fundamental. We get off into knowledge pontification, knowledge debating, and we refuse to do the fundamental thing. Carter G. Woodson right here said that we learn to take the path of least resistance. When history has shown us that the right path, we are willing to take that path. And that's the one that we need to have the will to take that path. Now, to my point, I'm getting ready to close. Dr. Isaac Richmond told me and Brother Shabaka Africa, he echoed it. He said, we are acting in the mannerism of a domestic colony. In case y'all don't know what that is, it's like a herd of cattle under the authority of white people. Can't stand that. I can't stand that. That's why there's a black liberation movement. The black liberation movement is a group of black people who are determined not to perform as a domestic colony. Last but not least, wise teacher told me sitting in this room, he said, Brother Patrick, we got to forget what we learned and remember what we already know.
Absolutely.
We got to forget what we learned from these white folks and remember what we already know. It's ingrained in us. It's encoded in our DNA. We have to remember. We have to remember. And we have to have the strength and the determination and join unification with these different organizations and begin to fight our collective battle. That's what I had to say.
Go ahead. A round of applause. Now, brothers and sisters, Brother Andre said freedom is not free. It takes a little of your time. So if we went over time, it's a little heated in here, we apologize. But it's well worth it, isn't it? Yes, so what we want you to do as we close out with prayer, we just wanted to have a word of encouragement. Before you leave, if you got to stand in line to sign the petition, that's just a little time.
That's right.
I mean, you're willing to give a little time to sign a petition. You know, or we hurry up and go because we're trying to hurry up and do something. But it tells us something about we're not as committed as we may think we are. Exactly. So let's give a little time to make sure we sign the petition and make the meeting worth it. The second thing is, my brother, you said it right, let us join some organization for the advancement of our people. And those organizations that are here today, those groups that are here today, you got to know that you're starting something. And the unity of us is war to our enemy. You got to know that. So unity does not mean uniformity. It doesn't mean we're going to sound alike, sing alike. I can't sing, so I mean, it doesn't mean that. It just means that we're going to be together for one another. So before we leave tonight, make it your business to meet someone that you don't know. Somebody here that's your family. This is your family. If meet someone, I mean, I ain't talking about no fake stuff. I ain't talking about all that, you know. Yeah, you tell you, call me sometime. You know you ain't gonna call. Don't do that. Genuinely try to meet someone that you don't know. Look them in the eye, give them a genuine hug, and show the family, you know, we a family. That's right. Make sense? That's right. Okay, so that's it. Let's give that one more time. Let's give the panelists a round of applause. My brother's up. I think I'm being in trouble if I don't allow him to say what he has on his heart. He's full of the Spirit. Yes, sir.
Yeah, please forgive me for being rude enough to interrupt. I just want to thank all of you for just a wonderful evening.
Yes.
I mean, each and every one of you. And I want to say to my sister, Ava Muhammad, thank you so much for gracing us with your presence.
Yes.
That's right.
Out of all that I've heard, and not necessarily spoken, if we don't develop a separate state of mind then it won't make no difference what territory we go into. We'll simply repeat the same thing here. So we're going to move now and work like hell to create that separate state of mind. And once we accomplish that, then everything else will fall into place.
All praise go to Allah. Thank you, my friend. So we have our marching orders. We're gonna wait in line patiently to sign the petition. We're going to make it legible so that we can somebody can read it. Now I'm talking to myself on that one, you know. And we're going to greet someone that we have not met of our family, right? Is that what we're going to do today?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so how many had enjoyed themselves, had a good time? All of those who enjoyed themselves had a good time, say Ashe. Say peace. Peace. All right. Now let's stand and say prayer. We had a good time. I'm excited. This was wonderful. And you look wonderful. So I hope the photographers are getting a picture of this angle. Okay, brother gave me the list. Greenville, Jackson, Huntsville, Mississippi, all the brothers who came from all the other areas of Mississippi. Brother came from West Memphis, Arkansas. All of those who are here, you know, if we don't address you that way, you know it's in our heart, and Allah knows that we are all here. So let's greet one another when we close, okay?
Yes, sir.
So let's say prayer. Now we pray by placing our hands out of if we are to receive something. You pray by bowing your head and repeating it soundly to yourself.
Yes, sir.
In the name of Almighty God, the beneficent, the merciful, we say all praises are due to thee, the Lord of the worlds, the beneficent, the most merciful master of this day of judgment. Thee do we serve, and thy name do we seek. We ask that you guide us on the straight path, the path of those whom you have bestowed favor, not the path of those whom your wrath is brought down, nor of those who go astray. We thank you, Father, for a wonderful gathering. We thank you for the panelists who spoke, and we thank you for those who listened and those who heard. We thank you, Father. We ask that you imbue this spirit in our heart and please, Father, don't let us lose it. We thank you, and we ask all these blessings in the name of your messengers and warners. Amen. Amen. Brothers and sisters, we are now dismissed. Please greet one another.
You see how the white man did us, dog. They let them go, and they gonna keep killing us. It ain't gonna never stop, man.
I will read this to you. We want our people in America whose parents or grandparents were descendants from slaves to be allowed to establish a separate state or territory of their own, either on this continent or elsewhere. We believe that our former slave masters are obligated to provide such land, and that the area must be fertile and minerally rich. We believe that our former slave masters are obligated to maintain and supply our needs in this separate territory for the next 20 to 25 years until we are able to produce and supply our own needs. Since we cannot get along with them in peace and equality, after giving them 400 years of our sweat and blood and receiving in return some of the worst treatment human beings have ever experienced, we believe our contributions to this land and the suffering forced upon us by white America justifies our demand for our complete separation in a state or territory of our own. Now, the Honorable, all praise is due to Allah. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
I want to have the chance, unhindered, to teach the time and what must be done to every black man, woman, and child in America. And after we teach that subject, then we should take a vote as to how many of us want to stay with our open enemy, or how many of us want to be separated from them in a land of our own.